This the story of a handsome matchmaker whose entire job is basically speedrunning romance for other people. He introduces himself as a professional marriage counselor who guides clients from their first meeting all the way to wedding vows. And yes, he gets paid to make people fall in love. The story begins at a marriage hunting event where singles gather to search for potential partners, nervously chatting and trying their best to make a good impression. The atmosphere is lively, hopeful, and just a little awkward. Some people hit it off quickly, while others struggle to keep conversations alive without sounding like job interview candidates. Then things suddenly get uncomfortable when one overly pushy guy corners a woman and aggressively asks for her contact info. She clearly hesitates and tries to back away, but he keeps pressing, making everyone nearby start whispering about how weird and desperate he is. Before things can escalate, a massive, intimidating man steps in and calmly tells the guy to back off. One look at this absolute unit and the creep folds immediately, muttering excuses before retreating like his survival instincts have finally activated. The woman thanks her rescuer and shyly offers to chat with him, only for him to politely explain that he is not actually one of the participants. Instead, he hands her his card and introduces himself as Hakuju Entaru, a matchmaker from the Hakuju marriage counseling firm. She checks his business card, though awkwardly admits she has never heard of the company. Entaru takes that emotional damage with grace. He wishes her luck and walks away. Suddenly, the entire venue starts buzzing as everyone notices a breathtakingly beautiful woman entering the room. Even Entaru is stunned by her beauty, as if a celebrity just walked into the event. Her elegant black hair and striking appearance instantly draw attention, and within seconds, a swarm of men gathers around her. The men bombard her with invitations, one after another, offering drives, dinners, and basically every desperate pickup line their panicking brains can generate. But despite all the attention, Yui looks less flattered and more completely overwhelmed, standing there confused like her social battery just gets deleted in real time. Before the chaos can continue, another man steps in smoothly. He cuts through the crowd, telling the men that she clearly has no interest in them, and suggesting they go bother literally anyone else. The rejected guys leave in defeat, mourning the loss of their imaginary romance arc. The man who saves her is revealed to be from Kuromine Marriage Planning, the most famous marriage counseling company around. It is a top global enterprise with the industry's #1 reputation, a stacked portfolio, and enough prestige to make every smaller agency cry in the corner. Just hearing the name alone makes it clear these people are the final boss of matchmaking. The man asks Yui if those men are pressuring her, and she quietly admits they seem nice enough. Even so, he ignores her feelings completely and immediately starts listing off wealthy men like a luxury husband catalog. Yui tries to explain that she wants to find the right person herself, but he shuts that down instantly. In his eyes, only he can properly choose someone worthy of her. Yui's expression grows visibly sadder with every word, but before she can protest again, Entaru steps in and tells him to let her choose her own partner. If she wants to talk freely and find someone herself, then that should be her decision. The man turns, annoyed, and demands to know about him. Entaru introduces himself as a matchmaker from the Hakuju marriage counseling firm, only for the guy to instantly mock him, saying he has never heard of it. He boasts that his company provides only the finest partners to ensure the finest weddings, flexing his reputation like it is a stat sheet. Entaru points out that even the best plans mean nothing if the client's patience runs out first. Then, instead of arguing further, he calmly walks past the guy and hands his business card directly to Yui, awkwardly admitting his firm is more easygoing and asking if she would consider giving them a chance. Yui freezes in surprise and takes the card, clearly caught off guard by his sincerity. The Kuromine representative loses his temper immediately, calling Entaru a stray dog for interfering, then forcefully escorts Yui toward the VIP area. When Entaru tries to follow, a bodyguard blocks his path on the spot. But before disappearing, she turns back for just a moment and quietly introduces herself as Minazuki Yui. And just like that, our boy gets the name of the mysterious beauty. The scene shifts to Kanda, Tokyo, where the Hakuju marriage counseling firm is located, also known as Entaru's home, because bro apparently runs his business and his life from the same building, like a true workaholic. Inside, he finds a girl casually lying around, eating peanuts. He warns her about the horse chores. She responds with peak freeloading energy, pretending she has no memory of such responsibilities. This troublemaker is Kagurazaka Aori, Entaru's 17-year-old niece. She immediately proves she is built purely for chaos by tossing food at him and laughing when he gets annoyed. Entaru realizes, once again, that she is a completely hopeless case. And then he searches for Minazuki Yui online. Aori suddenly appears right behind him and notices Yui's profile. She excitedly points out that she is a scientist, talented, beautiful, and basically unfairly blessed by the universe. Even the camera loves her, apparently. Entaro quickly shuts down the idea that someone like her would ever become their client, since she belongs to Kuromina's side. Aoi instantly starts teasing him, asking if he is interested in her. Entaro denies it without hesitation, insisting that a matchmaker falling for a client is absolutely forbidden in their profession. To him, that is sacred taboo territory. Then, the office phone rings. Entaro answers professionally, but at first, no one speaks. He assumes it is just a prank call until a hesitant voice on the other end quietly asks if visiting the counseling firm would be too much trouble. The moment he hears that voice, he recognizes instantly that it's Yui's voice. Entaro welcomes Yui into his home office as she apologizes for arriving so suddenly, but he reassures her and politely offers her slippers at the entrance, like the gentleman he is. Yui steps inside and immediately notices the place looks straight out of another era, and Entaro casually explains that the house is over 50 years old. The office originally belonged to his mother, who also works as a matchmaker, meaning bro is literally carrying on the family business. Hearing that catches Yui off guard a little, and she quietly realizes matchmaking apparently runs in this man's bloodline. He gently invites her further inside while she removes her coat with the elegance of someone who looks expensive even while breathing normally. Entaro cannot help noticing how absurdly refined her whole presence feels, like she has a permanent rich girl aura turned on at all times. He leads her toward the office, but before they can even settle in, the door suddenly swings open and Aoi appears out of nowhere. The moment she sees Yui in person, she loses it completely and blurts out that the famous scientist looks even prettier than in the pictures, making Entaro instantly scold her for being rude. But before the embarrassment can settle, Yui's attention snaps entirely to Aoi, the elegant scientist who is suddenly short-circuited at the sight of an actual high school girl standing in front of her. She practically explodes with excitement, staring at Aoi as she has just witnessed a mythical creature spawn in real life. Everyone in the room immediately realizes this woman may be brilliant, beautiful, and accomplished, but she is also weird as hell in the most unexpected way possible. Aoi nearly jumps out of her skin, and Entaro has to calm her down. He wonders why this elegant scientist just transformed into a fangirl. Realizing she has completely blown her image, Yui panics and desperately tries to explain herself, only to somehow make it worse by admitting that she has a pure-hearted admiration for high school girls. Both of them freeze. Aoi is fully convinced they have accidentally invited a criminal into the house. Yui scrambles to defend herself, insisting it is not like that, but then somehow fumbles again by comparing her love for high school girls to being fond of dogs and cats, which only sends Aoi into even deeper panic because that explanation is somehow more suspicious than the first one. Watching the entire conversation derail into disaster, Entaro probably starts reconsidering his life choices in real time. Eventually, Yui manages to explain herself properly. Since she spent most of her life abroad and studied at Harvard while living in America, she rarely gets to see the kind of classic Japanese high school life she admires so much. To her, cute uniforms and cheerful schoolgirls feel like a rare cultural treasure she has only seen from afar, which makes her fascination less criminal and more painfully nerdy. Aoi somehow hears it as harbird and asks what species of bird that is, proving once again that no thought survives long in that girl's head. Yui excitedly gushes about how dazzling high school girls are, and Entaro quietly admits to himself that he is weirdly jealous of how much admiration they receive. Once the chaos dies down, he finally explains his firm's pricing structure, and Yui is immediately shocked by how cheap it is. Compared to the absurd fees at Kuromine, Hakuju marriage counseling looks almost suspiciously affordable, like either the service is amazing or this man is running love on a budget. Entaro mentions that his firm keeps the entry fees low because most of their payment comes only after a marriage has successfully worked out. Yui asks if that means he truly believes in his success rate. Aoi instantly starts hyping him up like his personal fan club president. She proudly reveals that in the industry, people call him the matchmaker who marries the unmarriageable, which is both insanely impressive and mildly disrespectful to his clients. He awkwardly brushes off the praise and says his mother used to say the same thing about herself, adding that he simply inherited her style of matchmaking. Hearing that makes Yui quietly more interested in him, realizing his confidence is not empty bragging, but something built from real experience and family tradition. Wanting to make things less distant, Entaro asks if he can call her by her first name. He says his family believes closeness between matchmaker and client helps build trust, and using first names is part of that approach. Yui agrees without much hesitation, saying that kind of familiarity is normal in America anyway. He then insists she call him Entaro too, and she accepts. The atmosphere between them immediately softens. With the formalities out of the way and the awkward introductions behind them, Entaro prepares to begin the real consultation. He now fully steps into his role as her matchmaker and guide. After finishing the explanation, he inquires if everything makes sense. Yui hesitates, then admits something important. She has always wanted to get married and believes marriage suits her life. However, she has no real idea what marriage actually involves. For someone so academically accomplished, her relationship experience is almost non-existent. The confession embarrasses her, and Entaro notices immediately. He stays calm and suggests a small field trip first. Before any matchmaking begins, she needs to experience the basics of romance and married life in real situations. Yui is surprised but agrees after a moment, placing her trust in him even though she clearly has no idea what will happen next. Aoi instantly treats this like a celebration and starts demanding eel for dinner. Entaro immediately shuts that nonsense down. But Yui casually pulls out her designer wallet and offers to treat them herself, declaring that spoiling high school girls is an adult's duty. Aoi is thrilled beyond belief, while he begs Yui not to encourage his goblin niece's bad habits any further. Aoi happily devours the eel as she has never eaten food before in her life. She loudly declares it the greatest thing ever, while Yui is genuinely pleased that her treat is being appreciated. Entaro feels slightly guilty that Yui ends up paying for even Aori's share of the meal. However, she insists that high school girls are national treasures and therefore worth spoiling. At this point, Entaro fully accepts that he has somehow taken responsibility for a beautiful, genius scientist. Then, the doorbell rings. Chaos enters the house in the form of another gorgeous woman, casually asking Entaro for fashion advice for her upcoming marriage interview. Yui immediately learns that this stunning woman is also one of Entaro's clients. The girl introduces herself as Hazakura Botan and starts complimenting Yui's appearance. Yui awkwardly asks about the issue holding her back from finding a partner. Botan then proudly reveals the answer with zero hesitation. Her job is drawing explicit adult manga. The revelation hits Yui like a flashbang. Her brain practically crashes trying to process that this elegant beauty makes a living drawing degeneracy for money. Botan gleefully confirms it, while Yui sits there in stunned silence, spiritually buffering in real time. Realizing this conversation is about to go wildly off the rails, Entaro immediately tells Aori to leave and study. There is absolutely no way he is letting his high school niece remain in the room for whatever insanity comes next. Botan immediately shoves one of her manga volumes into Yui's hands and begs her to read it. Entaro quickly tries to stop her, as forcing people to read her work is not exactly polite behavior. Still, Botan dramatically wilts and asks if Yui simply dislikes such content. Yui panics and hurriedly denies it, then awkwardly explains that her issue is not with the genre itself, but with how many shameless stories treat their female characters horribly. Botan proudly declares that her work is not like that at all. She explains that her manga is definitely adult in content, but she dislikes humiliation-based stories. Her series is made with genuine care for the heroine. Botan says her story follows a newlywed wife, Tachibana-san, and her married life. It mixes mature content with sincere emotional storytelling. Because of this balance, the series becomes popular with both male and female readers. Beneath the explicit material, the romance and emotional depth are strong. As Botan continues talking, she becomes more thoughtful. She admits that the more she writes about marriage, romance, and intimacy, the more she starts questioning her own understanding of love. Eventually, she becomes emotional and reveals the real reason behind her work. She doesn't just draw these stories for entertainment. She genuinely longs for the kind of loving marriage she writes about. She wants the same warmth, affection, and happiness she gives her characters on paper to become real in her own life. Hearing that makes Yui unexpectedly understand her completely. She decides she will give the manga a proper read after all. Botan celebrates as she has just secured a new lifelong fan. Yui nervously insists that reading something like this should be fine for her because she is an adult, then opens the book with full determination. That confidence lasts approximately 2 seconds. The moment she starts flipping through the pages, her face turns bright red. She keeps reading anyway because curiosity has now trapped her in a psychological hostage situation. Entaro changes the subject and asks Botan about the outfit she mentioned for her upcoming marriage interview. He gives his usual practical advice on something balanced and approachable. Botan agrees, then suddenly asks Yui for her opinion as well. Yui flustered at being put on the spot. She has only just begun her own marriage hunt and has basically no knowledge to offer. Entaro depicts that Yui is still in the middle of learning the basics through his guidance. Hearing that, Botan suddenly gets an idea and suggests that Yui come observe her marriage interview tomorrow. She says Yui can simply watch from nearby and treat it as part of her learning experience. Her crash course in romance is about to get very practical, very fast. The next day, Entaro brings Yui to a large hotel for Botan's marriage interview. She thought these meetings would happen in some ultra-formal private restaurant, like a business merger for romance. Entaro explains that while it used to be that way, modern matchmaking usually uses public places like hotels and cafes instead. They provide a comfortable, neutral setting without the awkward pressure of meeting a stranger in a private room on day one. Basically, less hostage negotiation vibes. Soon, they find Botan waiting for them, dressed beautifully and looking far more polished than usual. She nervously asks Yui how she looks, and Yui honestly tells her the outfit suits her perfectly. Botan admits she is extremely nervous now that the day has actually arrived. Entaro reminds her one last time to be careful about how she talks about her career. He warns that casually mentioning she draws 18+ manga right at the start of a conversation tends to create unnecessary misunderstandings. Botan solemnly promises to be extra careful this time, which somehow sounds less reassuring than intended. Not long after, Botan sits down with her match, a handsome and well-mannered man named Sawatari. Entaro handles the introduction smoothly, presenting Botan warmly. The man responds modestly, and the conversation starts naturally as Entaro asks about his profession. When Sawatari reveals that he is a teacher, specifically a physical education teacher, Yui, who is secretly observing from a nearby seat, reacts immediately. To Yui's innocent, overactive imagination, this man basically sounds like a shoujo manga protagonist generated in a lab. Suddenly, she is way more invested in this interview than she expected. Sawatari asks Botan if she works as a mangaka, and she nervously confirms it. He says he likes manga too, especially sports series, and thinks people who call manga bad for education are being ridiculous. Botan quickly agrees, relieved that the conversation starts smoothly. Entaro watches from the side in full anxiety mode, already fearing the next question. Then Sawatari asks what kind of manga she draws. Entaro instantly realizes danger is approaching at light speed. Botan hesitates and completely struggles to answer, so Entaro jumps in and vaguely explains that she works across many genres, trying to keep the truth from detonating the whole meeting. Botan awkwardly backs him up, but her explanation somehow sounds even more suspicious and makes everything worse. Just when it seems the crisis might pass, Botan's guilt takes over. She suddenly stands up and decides she has to tell the truth. Despite Entaro trying to stop her, she blurts out that she draws R18 manga. Entaro instantly thinks the interview is over. Yui also braces for impact, expecting the mood to die on the spot. But instead, Sawatari just laughs. He admits that as a man, he has no problem with that kind of work, and even seems completely unfazed by it. Botan stares at him in shock, unable to believe she survives that confession. Entaro nearly collapses from the emotional damage of almost witnessing a live disaster. Yui watches the whole thing in surprise and feels relieved seeing the atmosphere remain warm, happy that Botan may have found someone who accepts her exactly as she is. 2 days later, Yui waits impatiently at the office, checking the time again and again. She asks Entaro whether Botan's marriage interview response should have arrived by now. Entaro calmly explains that replies usually take about 2 to 3 days, so it could come at any moment. Then he glances at Yui and points out that she seems unusually invested for someone who wasn't even on the date. Flustered, Yui admits she might be getting a little too emotionally involved in the process. Curious, she shifts the topic and wonders about the man Botan met. Since he was from Hakata, she questions how Entaro managed to arrange the introduction when his agency operates in a different area. Entaro then explains that there is something called the Marriage Agency Federation, a nationwide network that connects matchmaking agencies across the country. He describes it as a kind of Avengers system for marriage coordination. Through this system, agencies share candidate databases, giving clients access to a massive pool of nearly 50,000 potential partners with an almost perfectly balanced gender ratio. As he speaks, he proudly pulls up the registry and grins while explaining it with the enthusiasm of a gacha player showing off banner rates. Yui, on the other hand, is slightly unsettled by how excited he is about it. Just then, Botan arrives at the office. Noticing Yui already there, she casually asks if she had a meeting scheduled. Yui hesitates, then shyly admits she came because she was nervous about Botan's results. Botan is shocked that Yui cares this much, while Entaro internally questions which one of them is truly the invested party here anymore. At the exact moment, the reply finally arrives. And just like that, everyone's tension spikes as Entaro announces that Botan's result is in. Botan's hands shake as the long-awaited reply finally arrives, and the room goes dead silent with tension. Entaro confirms one last time that she genuinely wants a serious relationship with Sawatari, and when she says yes, he reveals that Sawatari feels the same. For one glorious second, Botan's entire face lights up. The response comes with a condition. Sawatari's family disapproves of Botan's job and will only support the relationship if she quits being an ero mangaka and agrees to marry into their family. The mood instantly crashes to the floor. Yui is stunned that marriage would require Botan to give up her career, and Entaro explains that when someone dates with marriage in mind, family approval becomes part of the package deal. Sadly, being an adult manga artist does not exactly earn 5-star reviews from conservative in-laws. When asked what she thinks, Botan immediately refuses. Manga means too much to her, and there is no way she can abandon it. Entaro already knows the answer before she even says it. He has seen firsthand how hard she works for her craft, the sleepless nights, the constant deadlines, the chaos of drawing absurdly unholy content while somehow remaining weirdly wholesome in real life. Her job may be chaotic beyond reason, but it is something she genuinely loves, and she fights for it every single day while keeping that bright smile on her face. Yui's expression softens as she glances at Botan, a tinge of sadness in her eyes. She opens the manga and carefully examines the pages, noticing the care and affection poured into the characters. The high school girl in the story isn't treated poorly, though the content is undeniably adult. Yui reflects on how rare it is to see such dedication in a mangaka, recognizing the value of Botan's work. Botan's eyes glisten with tears. She leaps forward and hugs Yui tightly, overwhelmed by the support. The nickname Yui Nyan escapes her in a burst of affection. Inspired by Yui's cat-like tsundere personality, Yui's cheeks heat, but she allows the playful gesture, letting the closeness linger. Botan's enthusiasm carries on, teasing about marrying Yui instead, though quickly retracting with laughter and acknowledgement of the joke. The mood shifts as Botan becomes serious, questioning whether her career as an ero mangaka makes it difficult for her to pursue marriage. Entaro reflects on the situation, noting that the issue isn't her profession, and that Sawatari-san was never truly a suitable match. Botan looks surprised but thoughtful, having enjoyed the previous interaction despite the complications. Yui quietly considers the parents' disapproval, but senses Entaro's reassurance. Entaro observes the momentary change in Sawatari-san's expression, affirming that Botan's straightforward nature is both rare and admirable. Botan feels drained and confused, trying to process everything. Entaro tells her that she's honest, pure-hearted, and unlucky in love, but that her love for drawing manga is real. He tells her that even if she seems a bit awkward, she deserves someone who doesn't lie to her. Botan wonders how many marriage interviews it will take to find someone like that. Entaro assures her not to worry. He will take responsibility, no matter if it takes 100 or even 200 interviews. Both of them feel emotional. Botan promises to give her best in the spouse hunting. Entaro smiles and says he will do his best too, even if hundreds of interviews are tiring. Suddenly his phone buzzes. The call is from Seotome Karen. He hesitates, surprised by the mysterious beauty in a tracksuit. She tells him she's been dumped. Entaro takes Yui with him through the streets, apologizing for dragging her along again. She says she does not mind, since she wants to understand more about his work. Still curious, she asks if the person they are meeting is some kind of wealthy young lady, because her voice on the phone sounded refined enough to suggest 3 butlers and a private piano room. He hesitates, then admits her guess is not entirely wrong, which only makes Yui more suspicious. When they arrive, however, the destination is a run-down old house that looks like it could collapse from a strong breeze. Yui stares at it in confusion, carefully trying not to call it haunted, and settling instead on antique. Entaro laughs at her reaction and knocks on the door. A moment later, a beautiful blonde girl opens it. Despite living in what looks like a survival horror setting, she carries herself like a runway model. She greets Entaro dramatically, declaring she has made a terrible mistake. But the moment she notices Yui, her expression shifts completely. She immediately demands to know who the new woman is. Yui quickly introduces herself, and Entaro explains that she is currently visiting the agency to learn about matchmaking. Karen studies her name for a brief moment, reacting as if it means something, but quickly brushes it aside and invites them in. She adds calmly that if Yui may become a future member, then she is not a stranger. Yui thanks her politely. Karen, meanwhile, sips her tea with perfect composure, as if she did not just switch personalities in under 3 seconds. Entaro then asks what kind of situation led to her being suddenly dumped. Tearfully, Karen explains that she accidentally left something in her date's car. She slides her purse onto the table with dramatic flair. For a moment, Yui thinks it is filled with cash, but it turns out to be overflowing with coupons, discount tickets, and enough point cards to qualify as a small retail operation. Karen nearly breaks down as she reveals the truth. Her date discovered she is poor. Worse, he hired a detective, took photos of her apartment, and even caught her buying bean sprouts, like she was in some low-budget financial documentary. It was complete overkill. Entero points out that this happened because she kept hiding her financial situation. Karen immediately protests, telling him not to call her poor right after she just said it herself. Despite the embarrassment, she declares firmly that she will not give up. She intends to return to a life of luxury someday. With full dramatic energy, she reveals her background. She is Sayotomi Karen, the daughter of the prestigious Sayotomi family. She once lived in a massive mansion with maids and experienced a life of pure luxury before everything collapsed. When she was 10, her family company went bankrupt and her world fell apart. From that point on, she went from high society to struggling in everyday life, now living in a modest apartment with very little money. The contrast is extreme. Now, her goal is simple. She intends to marry into another wealthy family and regain the lifestyle she lost. Yui stands frozen as Karen openly describes her marriage plan like a rich husband's speed run. Entero tells her that pursuing a wealthy marriage is far more difficult than she makes it sound, since rich families come with strict expectations and complicated conditions that feel like a demanding interview process. Karen, however, remains confident. She says money may be gone, but her beauty is still intact, so she has a chance. Her confidence is completely unshaken. What confuses Entaro is that Karen does not actually seem unhappy with her current life. She enjoys her part-time job, gets along with coworkers, and even gets excited over supermarket discounts like they are major events. It makes him wonder whether she truly wants to return to luxury or if she is chasing an idea of her past rather than reality. As they leave her house and walk back, Yui quietly reflects that everyone enters marriage hunting for different reasons. Some seek love, some stability, and some, like Karen, are clearly aiming for a wealthy marriage path. Entaro explains that many clients care about money, and that is normal. Financial security matters, and people naturally want stability. Finding someone who truly does not care about status is rare. He even jokes that being born into a distinguished family would probably be great. But Yui suddenly goes quiet. She admits she does not actually think a wealthy life like that is very appealing. Her words surprise Entaro, and when he tries to ask what she means, she quickly brushes it off as nothing. The conversation moves on, but he is left with the feeling that her past may be more complicated than she is willing to say. As they return to the agency house, Yui is immediately greeted by the rich smell of a homemade dinner. The food looks so good it feels comforting just to see it. Botan instantly asks Mihiru for a lap pillow with zero hesitation, but Mihiru gently tells her to wait since she is still cooking. Yui and Entaro watch the scene until Mihiru notices them and warmly welcomes them home. She introduces herself as Kohinata Mihiru, another member of the Hakujo marriage agency. Entaro thanks her for making dinner again, but Mihiru casually says cooking is just her hobby. Botan eagerly tells Yui that Mihiru's food is amazing and insists she has to try it. Yui asks if she can join, and Entaro happily agrees, proudly praising Mihiru's cooking. Mihiru explains that she works as a nursery school teacher and clarifies that, despite Botan calling her mama, she is not actually married. Then, with perfect timing, she hands Entaro a freshly ironed shirt, mentioning it was too wrinkled to leave as it was. The room falls quiet for a moment at her effortless display of domestic skill. He quickly apologizes for the trouble, while Yui watches in amazement. Mihiru gives off such calm and reliable energy that simply being near her feels reassuring. At this point, Yui cannot help but wonder why someone so naturally suited for married life even needs help finding a partner. Then Aoi bursts in with maximum chaos, launches straight at Mihiru, and instantly claims her like this is a daily ritual. Botan protests that the favoritism is unfair and argues that hardworking girls deserve equal rewards, so within seconds, both of them are fighting for affection like overgrown toddlers. Mihiru calmly solves the crisis by sitting on the sofa, patting her lap, and inviting them both over. The two dive in immediately, and Mihiru praises them for working hard today while gently patting their heads like the most overpowered mother figure alive. Even Entaro has to admit Mihiru is basically overflowing with motherhood stats. Yui watches the scene with her heart pounding, thinking it looks unbelievably comforting, though her brain somehow reaches the cursed conclusion that she wants to be pampered by a high school girl too. Entaro can only stare at her priorities in confusion. Then, Mihiru casually drops a bombshell on everyone and reveals that she has gotten herself a boyfriend. Everyone freezes in shock when Mihiru reveals she has a boyfriend, and before anyone can recover, she says she wants to introduce him properly. A loud engine roars outside like the dude is entering with villain DLC equipped, and Mahiru happily runs to bring him in. The door opens, and in walks a flashy, host-looking guy from Kabukicho, introducing himself with way too much confidence. The entire room instantly loses faith in humanity. Even Yui takes one look at him and quietly asks if Mahiru is seriously going to be okay with a man who radiates Red Flag Premium Edition energy. Entaro agrees that anyone would think the same, especially because Mahiru somehow keeps attracting the most unemployed in spirit men imaginable. But then Mahiru proudly explains she met him at a matchmaking venue when he looked lonely and depressed. That is when Entaro suddenly realizes this is the same pushy guy from before who was harassing women at the party. He immediately calls him out, exposing him on the spot like live public patch notes. The guy panics and tries to deny everything, but the damage is done. Before the argument can escalate further, the boyfriend grabs Mahiru's hand and tries to leave with her. Entaro attempts to stop them, but Mahiru gently reassures him with a smile, saying she will be fine because she believes he is a good person. And just like that, everyone is left standing there in stunned silence, watching the nicest woman in the room walk away with the most suspicious boyfriend imaginable. Entaro shouts that this is a terrible idea, but the couple drives off before he can stop them, leaving only the sound of the engine behind. The others sigh, admitting that once Mahiru sets her mind on someone, she never listens. Yui tries to stay neutral, suggesting that even if the man seems unreliable, it might be fine if Mahiru is happy. Entaro immediately disagrees. He explains that the real problem is not just her taste in partners, it is how much she gives. Mahiru throws herself completely into relationships, overworks herself, and gives everything until she burns out and gets hurt. It is a pattern. Yui is surprised, and Botan adds that when Mahiru gets heartbroken, she clings to everyone in the house for comfort all day. Hearing that, Yui quickly understands the situation is more serious than she thought. As the car disappears into the distance, Entaro is already worrying, like someone watching a bad decision happen in real time. After Mahiru leaves, everyone sits down to eat the amazing meal she made, before disappearing with the human red flag. Even while eating, the whole table keeps worrying about her terrible taste in men. Aori says the guy looks shady enough that his face alone should come with a warning label, while Botan cries over how someone so perfect at cooking can be so catastrophically bad at choosing partners. Meanwhile, Yui is fully distracted because the food is absurdly good and she is having a spiritual experience with every bite. Then, out of nowhere, Karen is suddenly sitting at the table like she spawned in from another dimension. Even Entaro is shocked and asks when she got there. Karen casually explains that missing Mahiru's cooking was never an option, and that spouse hunting on an empty stomach is simply inefficient if one plans to marry rich. Botan instantly agrees with way too much enthusiasm, claiming it requires stamina, forcing Karen to tell her to phrase things less criminally. As the others joke around, Yui quietly watches them all and realizes everyone here has their own struggles, goals, and weird personalities, yet somehow they all move forward so confidently. Compared to them, she starts feeling painfully ordinary. While Entaro washes dishes and the girls keep chatting, Aori asks Yui about her hobbies. Yui, after thinking deeply, admits that her hobby is probably high school girls. The entire room immediately takes psychic damage, and Aori screams that this absolutely does not count as a normal hobby. Then Karen asks the real question, whether Yui has decided to join the agency yet. Botan and Aori pile on, telling her to just join already, but Yui hesitates. Karen notices her uncertainty and points out that few agencies offer terms this good, making it clear that price is probably not what is holding Yui back. Aori points out that Yui clearly is not struggling financially, especially after treating everyone to premium eel. The whole room instantly reacts with envy, but Karen quickly cuts the jokes and reminds everyone that spouse hunting is not a game. If Yui is only here to mess around, she should stop now. Her words hit harder than expected, and Yui quietly apologizes as the mood suddenly turns heavy. Seeing the atmosphere crash, Entaro quickly changes direction and suggests ending the tour phase altogether. Instead, he offers to let Yui experience the real thing through an actual mixer party. Instantly, the entire room lights up. He explains that he will gather male members from another marriage agency he knows, turning this into a proper matchmaking event. The girls immediately start making demands, like it is a custom character creator screen. Botan wants a man who accepts her manga career without judgment, while Karen shamelessly requests someone rich enough to fund her return to luxury mode. Then they turn to Yui and ask what kind of man she wants. Caught off guard, she hesitates before quietly admitting she wants someone who looks at who she is on the inside. Her answer makes the room pause for a second, and Entaro notices that this sounds far more honest than anything she has said before. Later that night, after everyone heads home, Entaro keeps thinking about those words and decides he may need to ask a certain person for help with what comes next. Then the day of the mixer party arrives in Shinjuku, and Entaro shows up to find all the girls dressed to kill. The squad looks so good that it feels less like a mixer and more like the final boss lineup of a dating sim. Even Entaro is impressed. Botan immediately declares that she is absolutely leaving with a man today, while Karen announces she will secure herself a rich gentleman no matter what. Meanwhile, Yui stands mentally buffering as the chaos begins. The mixer party finally begins, and the whole table kicks things off with a loud cheer as drinks start flowing immediately. Botan, unsurprisingly, starts drinking beer at a dangerous speed, like she is trying to unlock a hidden achievement, while everyone tells her to slow down before she gets patch noted out of existence. Once things settle, Entaro introduces the male members joining the mixer. The three men introduce themselves one by one, while Botan, Karen, and Yui do the same. The guys instantly compliment the girls for being gorgeous, and the atmosphere warms up fast. Entaro then thanks his university friend Makoto for helping arrange the whole event. Makoto, another matchmaker from a different agency, brushes it off and explains that one of the men had to cancel at the last minute because of work, so they are one person short. Entaro accepts it since real life unfortunately loves ruining schedules. Then Karen's eyes suddenly lock onto Ijuin's wrist, like a heat-seeking missile. She immediately notices his luxury watch and asks if it is a Patek Philippe, shocking him that she recognizes it so easily. The moment he confirms it, Karen activates at full power about luxury watch brands as if she has been waiting her whole life for this exact conversation. Girl spots one expensive accessory and enters rich dar mode instantly. Karen boldly says she is leaving herself open for some wonderful gentleman to gift her a luxury watch someday, and Ijuin happily plays along. Things are going smoothly until he casually asks where she usually buys her watches from. Without hesitation, Karen answers with Daiso. Entaro instantly tries to stop her, but the damage is done. Ijuin stands there in visible shock after hearing that the self-proclaimed luxury watch enthusiast shops at the Japanese dollar store. Karen panics and desperately tries to recover by claiming she means a standalone store. Meanwhile, Surugano turns out to be a massive fan of Botan's manga and reveals he has already read her work. The moment he learns he is sitting with Sakura Leaf herself, he nearly loses it and asks for an autograph on the spot. Botan lights up instantly, thrilled to meet a genuine fan at a marriage mixer of all places. She happily signs for him, even sketches extra art as a bonus service. The two cuties immediately dive into an excited conversation about her manga, like they forgot this is supposed to be a matchmaking event. Watching both pairs hit it off, Entaro feels relieved that things are going surprisingly well. But then Makoto mentions he had really wanted one more person to meet Yui too. Curious, Entaro asks who that person is, and the missing participant is a monk. And just like that, Entaro's brain short-circuits because apparently this mixer almost had a monk in the dating roster for absolutely no reason. Makoto explains that since Yui wanted someone who values what is inside a person, he thought the monk would be perfect because monks supposedly do not judge people by appearance at all. Yui overhears this while already half drunk and nearly glowing from the alcohol. She mumbles that she kind of wishes she could have met him, clearly deep in her tipsy era. Entaro notices she is drinking Nihonshu and realizes she is way more drunk than expected. The girl is spiritually ascending off one bottle. Makoto apologizes for not being able to introduce the monk, so Yui cheerfully suggests everyone just talk about something fun instead. He reveals that Entaro once took a girl to a famous haunted house for a date, only to get so terrified himself that the date ended almost immediately. Apparently bro folded before the first ghost even clocked in. Entaro dies internally while Yui laughs softly and tells him he has a cute side too, which instantly catches him off guard. Makoto keeps teasing him while Entaro aggressively denies being embarrassed, despite looking exactly like a man being emotionally cooked in 4K. To change the subject before his dignity fully evaporates, Entaro suggests they all play a game since the atmosphere is getting lively. Everyone immediately agrees, fully ready for the chaos to escalate. Botan suddenly jumps up with maximum drunk energy and loudly suggests they play the pokey game. Entaro instantly panics, thinking she means that one dangerously unhinged drinking game. Botan reveals her own absurd version, where the girls strike seductive poses to make the guys flustered. Before anyone can stop her, Botan grabs Karen's melons and starts using her as a demonstration model, nearly causing Karen's soul to leave her body on the spot. Karen screams in outrage, while every guy at the table turns bright red. The entire room instantly becomes one HR violation away from disaster. Realizing the mixer is seconds from derailing completely, Entaru physically drags Botan away and apologizes to everyone for the chaos. Botan keeps whining that it is just a harmless game, but Entaru shuts that nonsense down immediately before the night gets banned from public records. To save the event, he suggests a much safer party game instead. Everyone draws numbered lots, and whoever wins gets to pick a number and ask that person any question they want. The chosen person then has to answer honestly. Everyone agrees, and Makoto quickly prepares the lottery sticks. Karen ends up drawing first. Without any hesitation and with full gold digger energy, Karen asks number 1 to reveal their annual income. Entero nearly chokes in shock. Everyone at the table turns to see who drew number 1. Surugano relaxes for a second when he realizes it is not him, but that relief disappears instantly when Yui reveals she is number 1. Calmly, Yui answers that her annual income is around 50 million yen, including royalties. The entire table freezes. Every guy is stunned that someone so young, elegant, and composed is earning that much. Karen almost short-circuits, mentally converting the number into how many meals it could buy, completely overwhelmed. Yui then casually adds that she does not know much about her finances because her parents manage everything, which only makes the situation more shocking. Entero can feel the atmosphere shift. Now everyone is very aware that they are sitting next to someone far above their level financially. The game continues, but quickly turns chaotic. Surugano asks a completely inappropriate question about cup size, and Entaro immediately calls him out for crossing the line. Despite that, the answer still gets thrown into the mix, and the questions only get worse from there. Soon the entire group is asking increasingly ridiculous things. Entero ends up getting targeted as well, taking hit after hit like he cannot catch a break. Then it becomes Yui's turn. Now a little more sober, she picks number 2 and asks a surprisingly serious question instead. She wants to know why everyone wants to get married. The table goes quiet. Makoto reveals that, even as a matchmaker, his honest reason is simple. Being alone gets lonely. The other guys agree immediately, saying they want someone who can comfort them and make the home feel less empty because sadly, 2D waifus cannot pay emotional rent. The girls share their own answers too. Botan says she wants real love from someone who accepts her fully, both emotionally and physically. Karen almost says she wants to marry rich before correcting herself into pretending she simply wants a dependable gentleman with a stable life. For the first time all night, the goofy mixer energy fades a little. The conversation gets real, and Yui quietly listens as everyone around her gives honest reasons for wanting marriage, making her think even harder about what she herself is truly searching for. As everyone shares their reasons for marriage, Entaru quietly realizes that every person wants something different from it. There is no single correct answer, so naturally, he turns to ask Yui why she wants to get married, only to find her completely passed out mid-conversation. The girl does not answer with words. She answers by face-planting onto the table. Botan declares that Yui has reached her limit, and the group decides the mixer has officially ended before she starts seeing double monks. While the others head off to the after-party, Entero decides to take responsibility and send Yui home himself. She can barely stand straight, wobbling like her legs forgot how gravity works. Outside, Yui somehow manages to call a taxi with surprising skill, making Entaro realize this might not be her first drunk rodeo. Inside the cab, they sit awkwardly close while Yui stares ahead with a completely blank. She then softly admits that the mixer was really fun. Entaro smiles as he is glad to hear that. And in true drunk Yui fashion, her next thought is that she still wishes she had gotten to meet the monk. Even blackout drunk, she remains committed to the monk agenda. Priorities unmatched. Entero tells her that a monk showing up at a mixer is still hard to imagine, no matter how many times she brings it up. Then he asks whether America had events like this. Yui explains that while there were home parties, they were nothing like tonight. Back when she was with Kurumin, she was never allowed to attend casual events like this, and every man she could meet had already been pre-selected for her, even though all she ever wanted was to choose someone for herself. Hearing that, Entero gently asks why she does not simply join Hakuju already. Yui admits she truly likes his agency. She enjoys being around everyone there, loves the atmosphere, and clearly feels comfortable with the group. But despite all that, she still hesitates, because deep down, she does not know if she is even qualified to join. Before he can ask more, Yui suddenly turns pale and says she feels sick, and Taro panics immediately, while the taxi driver begs her not to throw up in the car, as this man has seen horrors beyond comprehension. Thankfully, they arrive just in time. Yui stumbles out of the taxi, barely able to walk, so Entaro helps guide her toward her apartment entrance, only to freeze the moment he looks up. She lives in a ridiculously luxurious high-rise, the kind of place that would make Karen pass out from envy on sight. As Entaro awkwardly prepares to leave her there, Yui suddenly grabs his sleeve and stops him. Then, with a serious look on her face, she asks him to come upstairs, because there is something important she wants to talk to him about. Bro's heartbeat just entered emergency mode. Entaro instantly gets nervous when Yui invites him upstairs and tries to suggest talking downstairs instead. NPC. Entaro is clearly aware that entering a woman's apartment at night is a dangerous level of rom-com flag. But Yui explains this is something deeply personal. Specifically, the real reason she feels unqualified to join the marriage agency. Hearing her serious tone, Entaro agrees. The two head up to her apartment, and the moment he steps inside, he is hit with an absurd luxury setup and a massive city view that looks straight out of a billionaire lifestyle ad. Entaro is left stunned, while Yui casually says, "You get used to it in 3 days. Like this is normal." Then he notices the place is absolutely covered in scattered documents and papers. When he asks if they are related to her scientific work, Yui explains that most of them are actually hobby research and hurriedly starts cleaning them up, proving that even elegant genius women can live in organized chaos. She offers him a drink, and after learning he does not handle alcohol well, gives him oolong tea instead, along with snacks in the most random pairing imaginable. Whiskey for herself, oolong tea, and crackers for him. Peak hospitality. As they sit down and drink together, Entaro notices she seems pretty familiar with whiskey and asks if she drinks often. Yui quietly admits that lately she only drinks when she wants to get herself drunk. That answer immediately changes the mood. When Entaro asks why, she softly says that things have simply been like that recently, though she makes sure to clarify that she never drinks while working at her research facility. The atmosphere turns much heavier, and it becomes clear that whatever Yui is about to reveal is far more serious than Entaro expected. Entaro gently asks if Kuromine is the reason she has been drinking like this. After a long pause, Yui finally admits the truth. She never started spouse hunting because she personally wanted to. Her father pushed her into it. He was the one who sent her abroad, the one who kept pressuring her about marriage, and the one who made her start thinking it was simply the next thing she was supposed to do. So she followed along because that was what had always been expected of her. That is when Entaro finally understands. Yui then looks at everyone at Hakuju and says they all feel different from her. Every member there has their own strong reason for wanting marriage. Everyone is chasing something they truly believe in. Even Entaro throws his whole heart into his work. But her? She feels like she has no clear reason at all. Entaro gently pushes back, saying it does not look like she wants marriage only because someone told her to. If that were true, she would not have reached out to him herself, visited his agency, or kept coming back on her own. That had to come from her. But Yui still cannot understand herself. She admits that even though she does seem to want marriage somehow, she cannot explain why. The feeling is there, but it is vague and unclear. She only knows that none of the men Kuromine chose for her ever felt right, and because of that, she starts blaming herself. She calls herself half-hearted, selfish, says maybe she only came to Hakuju because she was trying to run away from Kuromine rather than honestly pursuing marriage. The more she thinks about her feelings, the less she understands them. And now she is terrified that maybe she has no right to keep searching for marriage when she does not even understand why she wants it in the first place. By the end of her confession, tears begin welling in her eyes. For the first time, the elegant genius who always seems so composed finally shows just how lost she really is. Entaro tells her that maybe not understanding her feelings does not mean they are fake. Sometimes, the emotions people understand the least are the most genuine ones. He explains that plenty of people get married without some grand reason or perfectly logical explanation. Some simply meet someone and feel that they are the one. Others only discover why they wanted marriage while going through the process itself. So in his eyes, Yui does not need to have everything figured out right now. When she argues that her parents may have started all of this, Entaro tells her that the starting point does not matter anymore. What matters is the honest desire hidden deep in her own heart. He asks her to think about the one thing she truly wants most right now. After reflecting on it, Yui finally gives her answer. She cannot explain it perfectly, but she does want to get married, and Entaro smiles, telling her that it is more than enough. Relieved, Yui thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Then, now emotionally lighter and a little bolder, she pours him whiskey too and insists he drink with her. Entaro gives in for 1 cup. 1 cup turns into shared drinks, soft laughter, and the mood becomes far warmer than before. As they relax together, Entaro notices how much more expressive and cheerful Yui becomes while drinking, teasing that she gets surprisingly lively when drunk. Yui immediately pouts and asks if he is saying her normal self is gloomy. Entaro quickly corrects himself, saying her normal self is not gloomy, just cool and composed. Drunk Yui laughs softly and asks Entaro which version of her he likes more. Entaro stares at her for a moment, clearly caught off guard, and hesitates. He answers carefully, saying he is just a matchmaker, so he should not really be thinking like that. Yui nods, then suddenly hands him a camera. Before he can even process it, she grabs his hand and pulls him toward another room. Entaro panics, asking what is going on, but she keeps leading him without slowing down. When they arrive, he freezes. The room is filled with a massive collection of uniforms neatly arranged everywhere. Yui proudly asks what he thinks, saying this is her uniform collection. Then, completely serious despite being drunk, she asks him to take photos of her wearing all of them. Entaro just stands there, visibly overwhelmed, trying to process everything happening.
Here I am, know it's been a while.